Hello and welcome to the Renters Together MHK Survey Report. This week's report is over Carlson Plaza. Carlson Plaza is a single bedroom apartment complex, part of the public housing program, so only low income earners that qualify can live there. Last Saturday, July 17th, 2021, Casey and I surveyed 12 tenants at random. We talked to them to see how they're doing and if they would like to participate in a survey, which is designed to give everyone a clear idea of how tenants in the building are doing. Here's the Manhattan Housing Authority's website. Here's the About Us section. By focusing on policy innovation, the Manhattan Housing Authority creating positive and productive community partnerships to maximize social and economic opportunities for residents. Now remember this word community. This is important, and we're going to talk about it later in the video. The demographics of the tenants surveyed in this building are mostly white Caucasian, and most of them are 60 and above. Talking with tenants, we've noticed that some of them have a disability, some of them are retired, and a few have mental disabilities. It is clear that tenants of Carlson Plaza are some of the most vulnerable people in Manhattan, considering most of them don't have much of a choice in where to live. In this video, I'm not going to read off every single survey result. I will just be going over the highlights and how they relate to our experience talking with tenants, especially things they told us and what we've seen during our time there. But before I do, here's a quick word from our sponsors. We at Renters Together want to thank the Manhattan Alliance for Peace and Justice and Mutual Aid MHK. MAPJ is a community organization that has done phenomenal work fighting for transparency in the Riley County Commissionary. They also facilitate neutral platforms like the incredibly popular People's Forum, in which the Manhattan community and candidates running for office can get to know one another, and with participating orgs asking candidates what they would like them to accomplish once they're in office. Mutual Aid MHK is also a community organization that provides immediate, short-term support to our most vulnerable community members to prevent individuals from slipping into crisis or further crisis, and to fill in gaps in our community's social safety net. The support they offer takes a wide variety of forms: immediate financial support with rent and utilities, the work of their support network, in which they've got folks that will run errands for people, deliver groceries, assist with fuel and cell phone cards, repair vehicles and lawnmowers, cook and deliver meals, offer emotional and spiritual support, provide storage and housing for individuals that have been made homeless due to the pandemic. Mutual Aid MHK does not utilize any means testing in providing financial aid, because that would be ridiculous and a huge waste of time. As a result, they can direct and distribute funds much more rapidly and effectively than programs and organizations that do employ financial aid prerequisites. If you need aid or you just want to get involved, please check out the links below. If you would like to become a sponsor, there's a link for that too. Okay, now let's talk about these survey results. And let's see how they pertain to safe, secure, and affordable housing. Our very first impression, once we first started talking to tenants, was that they appeared to be afraid to speak out and give us their honest thoughts, as if somehow they might get in trouble for doing so. Casey noted that they seemed reluctant to criticize anything because they have lived there for so long, or maybe that they have little options that they don't want to get kicked out. If I had a red flag, I'd be waving it all over the place. Nobody should ever be afraid to speak their mind. As we continued, it was clear that tenants don't really know what's going on. Tenants informed us that there may be a plan to move people out into the towers to renovate Carlson, but they don't know when or how many people they're going to move out or what's going on. We asked tenants an interesting question. If you could change one thing about your home, what would it be? The most popular ask was to unlock the front doors. The tenants we talked to mentioned that the front doors would usually be open during the day, then locked at night. But due to COVID, the doors have been locked at all times, and tenants aren't sure when they will be unlocked again. At face value, this doesn't seem to be too big of an issue if you exclude miscommunication. However, some of the tenants we surveyed claim that they are not able to receive their packages from FedEx or receive much needed community support and aid like SNAP. In fact, one tenant in particular asked us if we could contact SNAP for her. Another result of the doors being locked is that the handicap functions have been turned off. You know that little blue button with the wheelchair, you push it and the doors automatically swing open. Well, that's no longer functioning. This isn't good. Tenants with disabilities really need help with the big, heavy front doors, especially if they're carrying things like groceries or packages. That ain't right. There is a clear lack of communication between tenants and management. One very interesting example of this pertains to the stimulus checks. Most of the tenants claimed that the stimulus checks were a great help. Two tenants, however, claimed that the checks actually hurt their financial situation. It turns out that the stimulus checks were considered part of their income, and since their rent is tied to their income, their rent went up. They couldn't refuse these checks and were forced to spend them on the increase of rent instead of other necessities. But what I would really like to get into is the special word I mentioned at the very beginning of this video. And that word is community. Take a second and think to yourself, what is a community? What does a community look like? What does it mean to be a part of a community? Walking around the Carlson Plaza and talking with tenants have convinced me that the Manhattan Housing Authority doesn't know what that word means, or either they're lying on their website. What does a community mean to a community organization like Renters Together? Well, first off, if we didn't have community, our organization wouldn't exist. For starters, it means communication. We host regular meetings in which everyone is invited. We ask things like, how are you doing? How's your housing situation? What do you like or dislike about your home? What would you like to know about us? Is there anything we can do to help you? Or at the very least, can we find someone to help you? We want everyone to feel comfortable speaking their mind. We invite criticism because we know it can only make us better. We want to make sure every renter we meet has safe, secure, and affordable housing, and that they are happy with the place they live in. Community also means transparency. We let everyone know what we're doing by posting on our social media, website, group chat, and talking about it in all of our meetings. It means participation. We claim to represent renters, so it is every renter's right to be able to participate in everything we do, while also knowing that they have an equal say in the activities and projects we pursue. In a good community, everyone is informed, free to speak their mind, and there's space where everyone can meet with other members of their community and talk about how they're doing and their experiences, whether they be positive or negative. But most importantly, members are trying to help one another. I don't really see that in Carlson Plaza. What we saw seems to threaten their housing security. Secure housing doesn't just affect one physically, but it also affects them mentally. Tenants appeared nervous when it comes to talking about their housing situation. They are reluctant to speak out against management. they're confused. They don't really know what's going on or when things will be fixed, when the basement will be open, when the doors will be unlocked, if they're going to have to be moved due to renovations, or even when those renovations are going to take place. A home is a sanctuary where one should feel safe, comfortable, and it should be a reliable escape from everything that troubles you or stresses you out. It can be psychological torture if you always feel like you're always on the cusp of being forcibly removed from your home. After talking with some of the tenants, and once they began to understand that we were just there to make sure they were doing all right and if they were satisfied with the place they're living in. As soon as they realized this, they began to tell us their life story. To me, opening up that fast to a stranger is a bit of an indication for the need for community. Being over 60 years old, being disabled, retired, having no place to meet and talk with your neighbors can feel a bit alienating. It's a recipe for depression. Depression can lead to much worse things. Another issue we heard is that some of the tenants were having issues with drugs, which that's not surprising to me at all. Of course, they might not be good for you, they will make the user feel good. If your life isn't going so great and you don't have the supportive community backing you up, then I'm willing to guess you're not going to feel so happy. It seems like some of these tenants are desperate enough to be happy that they are turning to harmful drugs to feel this happiness, even if it's just for a few hours. Next, let's talk about safety. For the most part, Carlson Plaza doesn't seem to have any immediate threats to tenant safety, but there were definitely reports of mold being an issue for some of the tenants. Casey noted that some of the rooms smelt like mold. She heard complaints of mold and that almost everyone she spoke to had some issues with their bathroom, either about mold in the bathroom or plumbing issues. One of the plumbing issues also being in the laundry room, with one of the pipes leaking apparently. Now, mold isn't an immediate threat to safety, but it is definitely a long term one. Over time, mold can have huge negative impacts on the respiratory system. And it's important to note that most of these tenants we surveyed had been living there close to 10 years or well over 10 years. Now, it's important to give credit where credit is due.
A couple things that are working fairly well is, as you can see, maintenance requests are respond to pretty fast, and the issue does get resolved. We can see here that most people claim to have a good relationship with the management. With all things considered, most people are satisfied with their living conditions.
One thing I really appreciate, though, is I've heard that there are regular inspections in the building, which is absolutely wonderful, and it is something that is lacking for all rental housing units in Manhattan. The Manhattan Housing Authority does a great job when it comes to providing affordable housing for Manhattan renters, and I believe we're lucky to have a public program in our city that does so. Most of these issues can be solved or at least alleviated by fostering a healthy community. One housing institution in particular does a pretty good job at this, and that is K-State Housing and Dining. Resident assistants host regular meetings which allow residents to see, talk, and interact with one another. RAs share news and updates. Residents can ask questions about rules, regulations, or really anything that would be on their mind. I do understand that in person meetings are a challenge with COVID and with a new variant going around. However, this isn't much of an excuse. We live in the most technologically advanced and wealthiest civilization that has ever existed on this planet. There are many options on how to connect residents remotely and provide space for residents to ask questions and to provide information on what's going on. There are many tools like social media, group chats, or programs like Zoom for residents to participate in the home that they live in. I feel that would put everyone's mind at ease if they could connect with other residents, if they were informed on what's going on, and most importantly, that they have a say in how their home operates. Also, providing and sharing aid and resources, and providing access to social workers or psychiatric help or drug users or anyone that would need them would do absolute wonders. This public institution will struggle and may fail if more issues are overlooked because of lack of communication, transparency, and resident participation. Our goal at Renters Together MHK is not to attack anyone, but to listen to renters and ensure that they have the housing that is a right of all people. Housing that is safe, housing that is affordable, and housing that is secure. We are not afraid to call out anyone, especially not a public institution that claims to help out renters. And when the executive director of that institution is a sitting city commissioner. We want to thank Rent Zero for helping us with our goal by aiding us in putting together this survey. More specifically, Magda and Vince. Thank you guys. I know this was a long video report, but there was a lot to say for the 2 hours we were talking to tenants in Carlson Plaza. But before I end this report, I just want to say one more thing to the Manhattan Housing Authority. You hold a tremendous amount of power over many desperate and vulnerable people's lives. You are the ones who decide if these people have a home or not, if and when they are moved somewhere else, if they get aid and helpful resources, and most importantly, the quality of that home and how it operates. You must understand that power. I believe you have a duty to share some of that power with the residents of Carlson Plaza in the form of participation, as in giving tenants some say in how their home functions. After all, they are the ones who are actually living there, not MHA. And ultimately, they are the ones who will suffer the consequences of your decisions. Be careful with power, because you know what they say about power.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
Thanks for listening to our report. Leave a like if you liked this and want to see more. Leave a dislike and let us know why. Let us know how we can improve. We may not see you next week because we're going to take a little break, but the week after, I'll see you for the next survey report. Bye.